Hi guys and welcome back to my channel. I know it's been a long old time since I filmed a video, but a lot has been going on in my life. I will do another video on a life update, maybe my next video or something, so keep an eye out for that. But for this video I wanted to talk about my driving test experience. So I passed my driving test at the end of last year. I applied for a graduate job just before I graduated university, and one of the requirements of the job was to have a driver's license. So that kind of put me on a mission to get my driving license sorted, get my driving test booked, and to stop procrastinating with it. So for my driving experience, I had a couple years experience from driving at college. I took lessons when I was 17 and 18. I drove in a manual and I was learning with a company, and it was my friend's mum who was teaching me. But everything with A-levels kind of got in the way, and my A-levels became my priority to get those done because I knew from when I was younger that there was a possibility that I might want to go to university at some point. So my A-levels took priority and I wanted to focus more on those to get those done and to get the grades that I needed to go to university. So I stopped driving for a little while, kind of gave up on the whole dream of driving. In a way it's a blessing and a curse, as I'm now 23, so for me, buying a car at this age and paying for insurance is a little bit more feasible, especially now I'm working full time. Whereas when I was 17, I was literally earning £150 a month, working 8 hours on a weekend in a retail store. That really wasn't going to work for the insurance premiums that are so high for 17-year-olds. So lo and behold, 2 years passed by. I tried doing my theory test multiple times. I passed my theory test on the 11th of August 2018. It was my 4th attempt, I believe, so 4 attempts at doing my theory test. Literally the story behind my theory test is that I had taken them 3 times previously. I took them once when I was 17, once when I think I was 18, and once when I was 20 or 21, around that age. And every time that I had booked a theory test, I was kind of lazy about it. I regret being so lazy about it, and I would just keep putting it off. I would revise for an hour and be like, that's enough revision, I'm totally going to pass my theory test. That wasn't the case. So I knew with this time I had gotten my job, my full-time job, my graduate job. I had started that at the beginning of August, and I knew that they had wanted me to get my license done. So I booked my theory test on the 11th of August and did 5. I booked it about a week in advance of doing it, and I decided to do 5 full days of revision. Very full on revision, like every time I had a spare couple of minutes, either when my boyfriend was driving me to my job or when we were just chilling in bed and he was doing some coursework, or vice versa, I would literally do mock theory tests all the time. So the app that I used to pass my driving test, sorry I'm looking down at my phone to get it up, I used the driving theory. It would have been a 2018 version. It wasn't the official DVSA one, but it was linked to DVSA. And as you can see on the little video in the screen, there were practice tests that you could do. There was a coach mode, you could go through the highway code, and you could also do hazard perception tests. So I used that for 5 days straight, and then I think my test was on a Saturday morning. I think I had it at like 9 AM or something ridiculous. I had to wake up super early from doing my first or second week of full-time work, and I passed my test. I think I got 43 on my actual test, like the multiple choice test, and then I think I got 47 on my hazard perception, if I remember correctly. When I'd done that, I was also learning to drive. I decided to go from a manual to an automatic. Now I know that is kind of a touchy subject. Parents always told me to learn in a manual. I always knew that I wanted to learn an automatic though. I'd done my 2 years of lessons, and I'd done my 2 years of lessons in a manual car, and I just found that because I'm so short, I'm 5'1" and a little bit, I like to count the little bit, but because I'm so short, I was learning in a Ford Fusion. If you know what that car looks like, I will put a picture of it here if you don't know what it looks like, especially if you're not from the UK. And I was learning in that, so it wasn't exactly a big car, but it wasn't exactly a small car. But it meant that I very much struggled to reach the clutch, and I would have my seat all the way forward, and I would also sit with a pillow behind my back, and I still could barely reach the clutch, and it would really hurt my ankle because I was pretty much pressing down with my toes. I couldn't press down with the ball of my foot. So after I ended my 2 years of lessons, I decided that for me personally, I wanted to learn in an automatic. So I started learning with a guy called Mark, and he was an independent driving instructor. He wasn't part of any big groups like 5 Star or anything like that, those big companies that I know in my area. So he was an independent driving instructor, and he was very much a tell it how it is kind of guy. And I think I must have had 4 lessons with him. Because I had already had 2 years of driving experience, I only needed like refresher lessons to go through maneuvers and just to get the hang of driving in an automatic. My parents also have 2 automatic cars in the family. We have a giant big 7-seater Grand Picasso, and then we have a smaller Ford B-Max. So still both not small cars, but I asked if I could be put on learner insurance on the B-Max so I could use that outside of driving lessons to get more driving experience. So even though I only had 4 hours of lessons, my dad was sitting in the passenger seat, because in the UK, if you are learning to drive and you want to learn to or drive in your own car or your parents' car or a friend's car, you must be accompanied by someone who is over the age of 21 and also has also been driving or held their license for 3 years. So my boyfriend hadn't quite held his license for 3 years yet, so my mum doesn't like to be a passenger in a car with me. That's not because I'm a terrible driver. She likes to be in control, which is fair enough. I'm exactly the same. So my dad had to volunteer as tribute. So me and my dad would often do my drives to work. We'd drive to the local shopping centre, we'd drive to the local supermarkets, we'd do bits and bobs like that so I could just get more driving experience. And so I did 2 driving tests in total. I failed my first test and I passed my second test. I did my first test at the end of August. So again, I passed my theory test on the 11th of August, and I did my first driving test on the 29th of August at 2:45, I believe was the time I did it. And I did my driving test in my parents' second car. So in the UK, I don't know if this is the same in the US or any other countries, but you can either do your driving test in your driving instructor's car, or you can do it in your own car as long as it meets the regulations. My driving instructor wasn't available on the day that I had my first test, so I decided to do it in my parents' second car. Again, I knew that was the car I was going to be driving for a little bit, so it was kind of good to get used to the car and learning to park it and do the maneuvers in it. So I did my first test, everything was going really well until about 15-20 minutes in. Bear in mind, the UK tests, they're meant to be 45 minutes I believe, but both of mine only ended up being no more than 30 minutes. And so I was about 15-20 minutes in, so I was nearing the end of my test, and I was at a mini roundabout. I had to give way to people on my right, because that's how you do it here in the UK. You always give way to the person on your right. And I had been giving way to people on my right, and there was 2 cars across on my right, and I could see one was going straight over, so it was going the same direction that I was facing, and then the car behind wasn't indicating, so I thought that's my chance to go around to the left. The first car went, and then the car behind decided also to go the same way as me, and I caused her to harsh brake. I understand that because she didn't indicate, it shouldn't have been my fault, but because I didn't wait and give it a chance to see where she was going, I had to take the fail. Other than that, I had no other minors on my test. So in the UK, you have to wait a minimum, I think, of 3 days before you take another test, and I decided to book my next test on the 11th of September. That's the soonest I could do it, and I think I had it at 1:30, I believe. And so I did my test. I went in feeling a little bit more confident because I'd already done a test already, so I already had an idea of how things were going to work and how they work and how tests go. I had a male driving and test person. He was really nice, really chatty. I got in the car, he sat in the car with me. He did the show me, tell me questions. So in the UK, you have one show me question, which is showing your examiner how to do something on the car, and then you have a tell me question, which is telling them how something works in the car. And I think I didn't end up having a show me question. I don't know if he just forgot or he just didn't feel the need to do one, but I did have a tell me question, and my tell me question was just to tell him what the tread on a car tyre should be. So pretty simple, a minimum of 1.6 millimeters. Did that perfect. Then we went off on the driving test. My driving test ended up being, I think, 25 minutes this time. I did my manoeuvre, so both of my tests I had the same manoeuvre, which was pull up on the right and reverse 2 car lengths. I did that really great. So at the end of the test he said, "I'm pleased to let you know you passed." I passed with 5 minors, so a lot more than the second time, but I'm happy that I passed. And you can have up to, I think it's 13 minors in a driving test before they fail you. So yeah, I did my test, I passed on the 11th of September 2018. I waited, I think I got my driver's license 10 days later, so my pink piece of plastic came in and I'm very happy to have that now. And since I've passed my test, I have been driving my parents' second car, the little B-Max, and I'm now looking at getting my own car. Story with the car that my parents have as a second car, I was planning to get something once having a little bit more driving experience. I wanted to get something as soon as I'd passed, but at the time that wasn't very feasible, and insurance premiums were ridiculous. So even though I'm older now, insurance premiums are lower, but the more months of driving experience you have, even if you don't have any no claims, so I'm insured on the second car, but I am not getting any no claims discount. Even now, looking at like 1 litre cars, I'm being quoted about £750 for insurance, which is still expensive, but it's not as much as it was when I was 17, being quoted like £1,500 for car insurance. So yeah, I'm now looking at buying my first car. I'm looking at buying a little runaround. I'm going and looking at cars, and I can afford a car now that I'm working full time, so I'm very excited about that. And if I do end up buying a car, I will do a car tour for you guys and maybe a couple of drive with me's. Maybe? I don't drive anywhere too exciting. So that is my experience with the driving test, the UK driving test, the 2018 test. If you didn't know, you also you follow a sat-nav on the UK driving test now, and that is really easy to do. It tells you what your speed is, it tells you what lane to be in, or at least the one that I had did, and it told me where to go, and I found that so much easier than doing the road sign option. I also didn't have an emergency stop on my driving test, so I can't talk to that, but yeah. That is my experience with the UK driving test, and I passed my theory and my practical within a month of each other. So between the 11th of August and the 11th of September, I had passed both of my tests. And yeah, I'm now a fully fledged driver. Woo! If you have any questions about the driving test, or my personal experience driving test, or insurance, or buying your first car, leave a question in the comment box down below and I will get back to you. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I will see you next time. Bye!